teach us how to build thriving communities and bold new content. Please welcome them to the stage.
Sneakers, culture, and fashion. And then we have Madame Katie Feeney, who's right here. So Katie is a creator who, among other accomplishments, has really made history as the first ever social media correspondent for the NFL team, the Washington Commanders. And then, yeah, let's give claps. And then we have Olav. Olav, I am going to try to pronounce your last name.
Okay.
Stubberud?
Yeah, you got it.
And he is kind of a multidisciplinary creative, photographer, multi-artist with experience in commercial and artistic work, but also he's worked with some of the biggest names that you know, from music to sports. All of these creators are using Snapchat to kind of, push their creative agendas. Definitely 10 years ago, I would say creators or bloggers were just coming about, and now this is a full-fledged ecosystem. This is a full-fledged career. So Marissa, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think I really started taking just in general content creation seriously when COVID happened. I was broke on my couch, and of course I was shopping, because why not? When you have no money, you are looking at ways to spend it. And I was in love with sneakers my entire life. I've been passionate about styling them as well, and that was kind of my drive to really start honing in and focusing in on how to capture that content, but also, of course, be able to monetize and be able to grow a very, very strong community. And as far as Snapchat goes, one of the reasons that I decided to open up an account, first off, was the filters, because Snap really just owns it when it comes to filters, but also it's just a great way for me to keep in touch with some of my closest friends. Also, as Snap started to kind of grow as a platform as well, with the whole mapping system, knowing where all my friends are, getting to see where I've been. But in general, I just think that there's so many opportunities as a content creator to be able to do this full time, but also, of course, to have fun with it, and to be able to just showcase what you're doing in your day-to-day life.
Cool. And then I'm going to pass it on to you, Katie.
Yeah, I've been doing social media for quite a bit. I think I was 13 when I started. I don't know who let me have any of these social media accounts, but hey, someone did, and I had fun with it. I didn't take it too seriously until, I would say, quarantine as well. That's also around the time that I started posting on Snap as a creator versus just using it as a platform to communicate with my friends. But yeah, shifted into all the sports stuff my freshman year of college. But thanks to Snap, Snap is the reason why I went to Penn State, which is a story I'll tell later on. But if it weren't for Snapchat, I would probably not be in the sports world. But yeah, I've been traveling to a bunch of cool sporting events since, and covering sports from a new perspective, which I also think we'll get into more later.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I can't wait to get to the story of what you just said. Olav?
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of bring it like all the way back. But it's kind of like, without making it too long, but I mean, Facebook was kind of like the first in a sense, but you didn't really post stuff for others to see the way we maybe do now. So I feel like I started like maybe 2010, and then obviously Snapchat was like more to connect with people or like friends, and then I circled back to everything, kind of like now it's kind of everything, because I feel like, not that we have to, but it's not like either or, it's just like and. And for me, it's like I'm a photographer, so when it comes to, for example, Instagram, like it was very natural for me to share photos, because that was like, I would say like social media was kind of photographer's app almost to begin with, because we created all the content from the beginning. So it wasn't really like a close and personal, maybe. It was like a little bit, and then it got super glossy because of all the photographers. We got like super, professional cameras, etc. And then now we kind of like circle back to, let's say, the more like close and personal. And especially like when it comes to, you know, let's say the diverse platforms that we have now, where every platform has their own kind of way of doing things, and we can obviously recircle, but it shouldn't like take too much off us to like do everything. So again, we've been doing it for a long time for sure, but it's never really been like a main focus. Like maybe in some periods I kind of went more back into it and, you know, doing brand stuff and like, you know, bigger commercial stuff on social media. But for me, I kind of been lucky to have like social media as like a hobby. And again, Snapchat is kind of like the most hobbyist because you're just snapping everything. Even I've been like recircling like, let's say, professional content there. But yeah, it's been a super fun journey, and you know, if we're gonna bring more back than that, it's like MySpace, but it's like, you know, it's like, you know, it goes in a rabbit hole for sure, but it's been a long time. It's crazy to think about social media as like a, you know, way back thing now.
Yeah, no, I know. Now it's kind of like the new generation being born is born into social media. But I do like something that you referenced is because I do think at Snapchat, we say that Snapchat is an and not an or, meaning we understand that creators, we understand that celebrities, we understand that whomever you are, there's different ways to kind of represent yourselves. And I do think all the different platforms have a very distinctive DNA in what they do. Maybe some are very more brand focused. And with Snap is definitely one of the places where you can be more of your authentic selves. Where the engagement there, your community loves to see like what you're doing in the morning. We like to say that it's not about the 1% of your life, but the behind the scenes of your life, including the 1%. And so with that being said, how does Snap fit into your strategy, knowing that you guys are on many different platforms? How does it fit into your strategy of bettering the brand and bettering you as a content creator? Anyone can take it.
Yeah, I think specifically for me, it's one of those platforms where I don't have to think about what I'm posting. I just kind of run it and gun it where I'm filming myself, waking up in the morning. I love talking about having a zit some days and wondering how I'm going to cover it for an event in the evening. So I do a lot of BTS on Snapchat, where a lot of my other platforms, I feel like my community doesn't care to see any of that type of content. And Snap, specifically even when I'm working with brands, they love my BTS. They love me trying to figure out how to get ready with me. And also as far as like niche goes, I feel like I can adapt and go into other topics where my audience doesn't care that I'm not talking about sneakers. One of my most viral videos is actually me picking up a fruit. It was a durian. I don't know if any of you know what a durian is, but they're huge and spiky and crazy looking.
Where were you?
I was just in a 99 Ranch Market, literally lifting it up. It was so heavy, it felt like it was 50 pounds or something like that. But only on Snap do I feel like my community is okay with me doing just quirky, fun, ridiculous things where they're like, wow, I didn't know you like durian, or how much is that weigh? But it's just an amazing platform for you to not have to be so structured and so bland.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with that. And again, going back to that thing, that genuine, authentic self. Katie, you know, obviously your lifestyle as well, but you're very sports oriented. How does Snap fit into your strategy, your bigger picture?
Yeah, I think what I love about Snapchat is kind of adding on to what Marissa said, is you don't really have to think too much about it. When I go to sporting events on a lot of the other platforms, you'll see moments, but on Snapchat, I'm starting from the minute I wake up until I get back, whether it's 1 a.m. from the Super Bowl or I get stuck and I can't find an Uber on my way home. But it's all those little moments that I don't know if I can make it into a video and a standalone thing on another platform, but on Snapchat I post it all and then I save it all in permanent stories. Because I think as a creator, your hesitation might be, oh, it's going to disappear after 24 hours, 2 days, whatever the time you set on it is. But then I create these perm stories, so you can go onto my Snap profile and go all the way to any event, any day, anything, and see from start to finish, which I really like. But yeah, I think it's a great way to merge lifestyle with sports, which is what I've been aiming to do with my content.
For sure. And Olav, how does it fit in your strategy?
Yes, I mean, I keep it very casual. Again, kind of like what we all do, I guess. But it's one of those things where like I do, longer form content, and then I can show, let's say, the true BTS kind of thing on Snapchat, because you can see like a big campaign that I did or something, and then you can kind of backtrack into my Snapchat, and then you can see, do you feel like you're actually there type of thing. So I do use it as like a very casual thing, and again, I'm like not really dependent on social media in that sense. Like, and it's super important for me to like not, let's say, wear myself out on it, and that's why like I just I don't snap every day, but I do maybe 3 times a week type of thing. Like when I feel like I have a story to tell or like something to show, like I'm not gonna put anything on the pedestal, but I still kind of think of just like, I don't want to waste anyone's time type of thing. So like, I don't snap like my breakfast, like every morning. So it's just like more like, okay, now I can like bulk up type of things. But again, like it's important to like not overthink it for sure. Even though I've done longer form and literally cut it into like 90 seconds pieces, and done like a half an hour long video into just Snapchat, which is super interesting because again, it's just kind of like a platform where you can, you can try out things, and it's not one specific thing. It is intimate and it's like low barrier, but it doesn't have to be that.
Exactly, and I think that goes into my next question with your audience. Like, where do you see your audience really engaging with your content or with you? Katie?
Yeah, I think my content has honestly really shifted since I first started. For a while, I danced my whole life, and I was in high school and I really got into social media. So whatever was the most prevalent in my life, that's what I showcased. So at the time, it was the sports I did, track and field, videos in the classroom with my friends, and then it transitioned into unboxing videos, which I still do a lot of that on Snapchat. So people that have followed along my journey, they still get that like original content that I started with on Snap. And then going to Penn State, I went on the field for the very first time for the Penn State Whiteout game, which if any of you are familiar, it is the loudest football game you will ever go to in your life. I have yet to experience anything bigger than that game, but I knew I had a passion in sports. So since then, my goal has really been to just share a new perspective of sports. And traditionally, like when I first started, I remember I went to MLB All-Star Weekend and everyone was asking the players these really serious questions, and I'm going around asking them goofy and silly questions about who has the best hair on the league, the messiest locker, and it hadn't really been done yet, so it was a little bit, it was a little scary for me, but I got really great feedback from it, and that was kind of the moment I realized, okay, this can become something. And since then, I would say, yeah, a lot of interview content I do, a lot of behind the scenes, and yeah, just sharing what you wouldn't see on TV.
Yeah, I think for me, when I started my channel, I really couldn't find any women who were actually speaking and talking about sneakers in general. And so I really wanted to hone in on being different, and I think that's kind of what captured my audience, where I was kind of one of the first females going out there talking about the tech and sneakers, the fit and feel for women specifically. And so I really built a female audience that didn't really exist. I think there are a lot of amazing women out there who create incredible photo opportunities of wearing sneakers, but no one was really kind of putting themselves out there to be able to talk and speak about the product itself. So I became a very kind of educational focused channel, where I feel like a lot of people coming to my channel were looking for opportunities to get on top of trends, of sneakers that were coming out, sneaker news in general, and understanding, okay, this is the exact sneaker that I should be purchasing because of this fit or this sizing that she's told me about, or I just love the way it looks. And one of the things I love about Snap that I've kind of been, I think, circling around doing as well is covering red carpet events at different film festivals, showcasing and talking about looks on the carpets, and kind of bringing a younger generation to the festivals. I would say that it's a bit of a skews older, and I think one of the things that I started finding with my community is they love this type of content because they really haven't seen the type of interviews that we've been covering, but also just seeing a younger, fresher feel in these environments.
And since we're talking about that, you know, obviously someone who's deeply embedded in fashion and culture, and hype culture, as you call it, you know, Snapchat has allowed you to authentically engage with your community, especially with trends that are like super, super quick and fast moving. How does your content within that, if you could give us a visualization of the content that you would put on other platforms, what does that look like? And then what does that content then look like on Snap? Because I just want people to get a morsel of the content is very different, and how you present the content and essentially how you package the content is very different because it gets different engagement.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, Snap is real time in a sense where a lot of my content that I'm putting on other platforms, I have to sit down, edit those pieces. It's very time consuming. I'm really thinking about the structure and what the messages that I'm trying to add to the type of content. But for Snap, for instance, I brought my cute little Labubu. Does anybody know what Labubus are out here?
I just saw that they had a fashion show in Washington Square Park.
Yes, I missed it. I was going to bring my Labubus out for that event, but
how many people in here have a Labubu? Like
anyone have a Labubu?
There's one. All right, so you have a friend.
So if you don't know what the crazy idea behind this Labubu is, I started covering Pop Mart a long time ago, doing unboxings. Nobody really cared, but again, real time, kind of going back to the difference of like how I produce content. I actually went on a shopping spree with my Labubus recently, and I went and kind of dressed and styled them, and that's where I was snapping away. I mean, I didn't have time to really go back and edit that type of content for weeks later, but on Snap, that's the first platform that I go to when I'm trying to pump out content that has to do with trends. And so it was really cool. So I got to style each of my different colorways from the new Big Into Energy box that I received. And people just loved seeing that, you know, it was in the moment, it was in a timely fashion. Even, you know, with sneaker releases and things like that, when I'm getting them in the mail, like the first thing you have to do, since it's so timely, is to snap it quickly and do a quick little unboxing of it versus taking the time to go sit in an editing room, you know, really like hone in on a couple days to, you know, hours and hours and hours of editing that. But with trends, it's very essential that, you know, you're trying to get it out as quickly as you possibly can. And it doesn't need to be perfect, which is why I love Snap so much.
Yeah, I think that's, for me, kind of like the thing that is attractive is it doesn't need to be perfect. And especially in a world where everyone is told that they need to look perfect, which is not true. It's nice to be able to get a semblance of like real life and problems, and from pimples to maybe there's a mental problem that, you know, people are speaking to. Olav, your work spans both, as I mentioned earlier, commercial and artistic endeavors. We have so many tools on Snap, from the dual camera to just 1,000 other things. You had mentioned the different like cool lenses to augmented reality, which is AR, you know, being able to kind of put on a lipstick or wear a shoe. Because you are a photographer, have any of these features helped or enabled you experiment creatively or kind of push the boundaries in your particular visual storytelling?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm a big believer of XR and AR. I've done like full AR exhibitions as well, where, you know, I have photos, physical works on the wall, and then you have the camera or the phone that makes everything move, and, you know, there's a lot of elements. So Snap is kind of just, you know, been like let's say a melting pot of like all these different crazy, I mean, I can't even use all of it because it's literally so much, but like I have been involved in like making filters. I have like friends that is super involved in it as well that I can like work with, but if I want like specific filters. Actually, like way back, this is like before geo-tagging was a thing. I actually was one of the first to like have like my own filter. I had like this huge birthday party in Oslo, Norway, and I had like my little avatar, and it was like a birthday. That was like a big thing. But again, that kind of like took me into, let's say, the filter world of it, because they obviously launched like the creator program, and like, you know, you could do filters yourself and stuff. So for me, it's kind of, if I'm going in down like a whole rabbit hole of like just being experimental or whatever that is, I can just do like a full story with like old, just stupid filters. You know, like, you know, the other day again, just did 40 different filters on my face, and I think it was hilarious. So again, it's just, you know, my Snapchat is a mess, you know. So that's why, like, I love all these different venues of not, like, you know, again, not perfectionism, not anything. It's just like, you don't even almost think that it's, you know, like followers on there. You know, you still kind of like snap them to friends, and that is kind of how you treat your following too. And again, like I feel like I used it for friends. I went away from it for a certain amount of time, and then I went back into it where I just kind of like, I had more space to do it, and I felt more comfortable, let's say, sharing stuff like that. And it was kind of just like, you know, hi, like, anyone's still there, you know, like from like when I hadn't or like my followers way back, and like everyone just like, oh, you're finally back on Snap, and I was like, all right, it's like, what's up on Snap now? You know, this is obviously years ago now, but it was fun to see, you know, like the whole development on it. And again, suddenly you have this like big platform of the filters and the public stories, and you know, obviously, you know, Snap pays well in that, you know, in that sense. So you suddenly could make it into something that you maybe wanted to make it into, including the filters and everything else. So, I mean, I'm super interested in, like, you know, the XR glasses, you know, all that stuff.
That's all coming.
You know, everything is coming. So, you know, it's definitely an interesting venue just to kind of like get, you know, maybe outputs you can't get anywhere else.
No, for sure. Background in sports, obviously, in covering major events at the White House. How do you use Snapchat to give your community a unique behind-the-scenes look that they can't get anywhere?
I ask my audience a lot for interview ideas or content suggestions, or I interact with my audience like while I'm at an event, which I think is very unique because it gives that feeling that they're there with me. And I mean, I haven't seen yet someone like go to the holiday decorating at the White House and share every little bit of the place hall. So talking about, I mean, I'll talk about my opinion, like what I think of the decorations versus just like seeing something on an article or like a long form. So, I mean, it's definitely like, it's a new way for anyone that's using Snapchat, not just myself, to really cover any event or place. But yeah, I mean, I think I would say my content on Snapchat is definitely the most different than anywhere else. And I would also say I'm the most recognizable from Snapchat, which I think is so funny because Snapchat isn't my largest audience, but people like, even across campus at school, people that were like more so in my demographic when I first started, my demo was definitely younger and mostly female, but then I would have like guys in 2 grades above me say they watch my Snapchat stories, or even my friends at one point I was like, all right, everyone unadd me, like I'm about to get a little bit crazy on here, and no one listened to me, but yeah, so I think people seem to be engaged, that's always the goal, but yeah, it's definitely the most different, but yeah.
You know, I think I brought this up, you know, as creators, how do you balance creating content that is true to your personal brand POV, still the while adapting to trends and trying to find a place where you can still be authentic in a world where, you know, being built or looking like a specific type gets you farther?
Yeah, I think for my specific content when it comes to sneakers in general, I mean, it is very product-based. And so it is hard to get trapped into do I need to buy every single sneaker that's coming out? No, like for me personally, I only go after the sneakers that really speak to me. Even if it's not necessarily something I know that every single person in my community is gonna love, but they love the authenticity of this fits your personality, this fits your look and feel of how you would want to style it. For instance, right now, like ballet sneakers are huge. And there's a huge percentage of my audience that's also male, and of course, they are like, what are you doing? Why are you covering these? Like, why aren't you covering more Jordans? But right now, for me personally, where I'm at in my stage of my style and trends that I want to focus in on, that's just something that I feel like aesthetically is where I'm at in the moment. So I think always staying true to yourself and your own personal style versus this is something that's so hyped, so I have to be on board with this.
Yeah.
And even with the Labubu craze, like if it's not something for you, I know there's a lot of creators that are just jumping on board with it because it's so hyped.
Yeah.
Versus like, does this fit you aesthetically? And one of the things I love doing is styling my Lulus now with sneakers. So that's one of my favorite things on Snap is to kind of show myself with my cute. Yeah, we're both wearing Adidas today, basically. But yeah, I think that's kind of how I really don't get trapped into the focus on purely just doing trends, but just doing things that really resonate with myself personally.
Got it. And for Katie and Olav, kind of piggybacking on the question I just asked Marissa, is there's also branded content. We all know like branded content exists. How do you keep authentic to who you are with brand deals that could come through to you? Because we all know there is a monetary price, you'll get X amount of 0 for doing that. But how do you kind of deal with, is this product something that I would truly, use or even push out? How do you keep that authenticity while possibly using a product maybe you don't use? How does that work?
Yeah, I think authenticity is so important as you continue to develop your personal brand, because if you do a bunch of like one-off brand deals, over time, people can see that one, it's 1,000%, like there's no way that you like every single thing you're talking about. But for me personally, I focus on building long-term relationships with brands. So, truly, I won't talk about a brand that I don't use or I don't believe in. So, most of my longer-term brand partnerships have been with clothing companies, or I work with Gatorade. I worked with Lululemon on Snap actually, but those are companies that I've loved my whole life. And also now I'm really trying to focus on companies that also align back with sports. So everything I want to tie back into sports now, and that's kind of, I've done a lot of everything, but now I think I really want to narrow in on everything leading back to what my personal brand is, and then also with that sports focus.
Again, just staying true to what you believe in. For me, it's I'm a photographer, so I can kind of hide behind that in a sense. So if it's a product that I don't really believe in, I can shoot it, but I can't be the face of it type of thing. So I always kind of have an angle of, let's say, finessing the commercial work in that sense. But for social media, for me, it's been again, don't really need it, so I have the power to say no, and that's obviously it's been beneficial in every single way, because I can be very uncompromised, because I don't have to follow trends or focus on views and stuff like that. And then suddenly you do it very authentically, and then you catch on, and then you have, let's say, built a following unconditionally for yourself. So if you just following trends and kind of again referencing what you guys said, and it was if you do all these things and brand deals because of something else, you will also potentially bring on a following on the wrong premise, So you will shoot yourself in the foot, and then suddenly you're in a space where you have built a following, and then also you, let's say, attract brands that you don't even want because you did another brand deal that you didn't really want, but you did it. So it's just a chain reaction. So for me, I kind of just waited, and when it was too good to pass on, or too right for me, or right, I could say yes. So that led to yearly contracts and stuff that I really cared about. YSL Beauty for 3 years, and phone deals, and camera stuff, and stuff that I really, it was goals of mine, but also felt really attached to. So again, I think it's super important to find your way into it, and it's one of those things where don't reinvent the wheel every single time, because you wear yourself out, but definitely challenge the format, and what, and let's say ad is on social media now, it could be anything, so if you create something that you don't even think about as a brand-friendly thing, it can become that just because you do it, well. So it's like it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you do it.
Is the game, but I do think now it's changed to, is the engagement natural? You have 1 million followers, but only 2 people are commenting.
Yeah.
On certain platforms, or you have all these followers, but no one's really kind of taking in the content that you're creating.
I mean, Snapchat is kind of the hardest
It's
to do, in that
it's
sense.
hard, and I think that's a great thing about it. Just like you can't see the likes or when you post a story, which I think is, for me personally, a really great thing for mental health. Not being able to see how many people viewed this, how many people like this. It's only for you and your eyes only. So then I do think it lowers the barrier of creating content that is more closer to what you believe in, as opposed to creating content because you need to kind of get something from someone else.
You don't have anywhere to hide either.
Yeah.
So to do an ad on Snapchat, I would say way harder than all the other platforms, I would say.
Yeah.
Because it's just you and this, it's like,
and
what do you do?
The camera, you open up the app and the camera opens straight to you.
Right.
So you see your face. So looking ahead, what trends do you foresee in content creation on not just Snapchat, but just in general? What trends are you seeing in content creation? And how are you guys preparing to kind of evolve with those trends or new strategies, and honestly bring your audience along, but also continuing to grow your community?
Yeah, I think for me personally, time is money, and there's just not enough time in the day. 24 hours, I wish we had double that amount, but I think that AI is going to be a huge trend moving forward, and just alleviating the pressures of how can we be on all of these different platforms, still maintain all of these separate communities, while balancing out our day-to-day lives. Like, when am I gonna have time to hang out with my friends if all I'm doing is creating and capturing content all day? So I think for me personally, what I've been testing out is just ways to make bulk amounts of content, but also just alleviate the pressures of having to spend 90% of my day, working on something. If there is AI opportunities for me to kind of alleviate that and give me a few more hours in my day, that's kind of what I've been looking most forward to, is how can I use AI to save time so that I can use that time to allocate it to other areas of my life.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of think Snapchat is the trend. I think a lot of creators have been hopping on Snapchat because of the authenticity piece. I mean, I think, and on other platforms as well, what I've noticed is there's not a huge production anymore. Everything is very these short snippets, little opinionated things throughout the day, and people really want to get to know a person and their personality. And then, yes, you can have a niche, and I mean, I have a niche, but I think also just getting someone to get to know you is the most important thing. And I think for a while there was a lot of the day in the life was the trend, and the get ready with me, but I think that's kind of moving, and it's now I don't know, I think the trend is not, there's no niche or no trend exactly, it's just posting whatever and posting freely. And I think consistency is what you should focus on as opposed to the trends, because I mean, trends are great for reaching people and to get new eyeballs, but in order to sustain an audience and to really get someone to feel invested in you and your journey, that's when you have to open up a little bit more.
I mean, AI is obviously here to stay in some sense or another, but talking about, especially influencers, or let's say the category we are talking about right now, it's kind of either or. Again, I'm no seeing into the future here, but it's one of those things where we know that AI is going to take over a certain amount of stuff, and that's also a certain amount of people. So that also comes with social media. So if you don't have, let's say, a brand to attach something to, that is let's say it's hollow, it won't, brands won't follow, or they will just use AI because they just want a face to talk about their product.
Yeah.
But if that phase holds, let's say, values and et cetera, I think it will hold, way more longevity. So like these type of trends, we're experiencing rapid trends, in social media. Like one thing is like a song that goes viral, but another thing is like a form of content.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, Snapchat is kind of like the only platform that has, let's say, sustained without crazy trends or shifting of trends. And that is kind of like, let's say, revealing, or like it's kind of like, it's nice to see,
Yeah.
because like, again, for me as a content creator for Instagram now, like, I'm a videographer, director, photographer, whatever I want to call myself, and I've been doing it for over 20 years. And I can't keep up with the standard of short form content. It's like, that is crazy. Like, it is absolutely like, seeing you content creators coming along with like, especially YouTube and Instagram, maybe, let's say, the most glossy ones. The content looks incredible. Like, it's just like everything looks so glossy and popping that everyone is shooting with the Sony FX3 and, cinema LUTs and, et cetera, so having these, let's say, counter reactions, I think is super important. But again, going back to the trends, one of those things where different social media platforms is taking over for, let's say, certain streaming platforms or TV and, all these things, I think is going to be more and more dominant in some sense. We're always going to have traditional media in some sense, but I feel like the trends are, again, pushing for, all these platforms to, let's say, find their ways of, presenting stuff that we maybe are used to seeing in a different sense.
For sure, and to keep yourself authentic. That being said, I think I'm gonna kick it to audience, if there's any audience questions out there for our illustrious panel.
Well, thank you for bringing life, and thank you guys for coming to hear us speak. Happy creating, and I want to see you guys on Snap creating.
Let's give it up for them, guys!